Hello guys. Hope everyone is good. Once again, here's another trade breakdown on GBPUSD. I think I analyzed this trade 4 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. I actually executed this trade. I have screenshots, and guys, the time I executed this trade, I wasn't aware um, of time and price. So today I was preparing this trade breakdown. I noticed that the price from Frankfurt to London to New York, how the price behaved from my actual entry from Frankfurt Open to London and to New York. Um, that led to the trade to play out perfectly. So guys, let me show you the screenshots of my actual trade. This one. Yes guys, this it was floating around to 1:7 or 8 if I'm not mistaken. We're going to count when we get to the chart. And also I'll explain why I entered at this point, and I had another trade around this point. I think I have a screenshot. Let me show you this one. I anticipated that the price would manipulate this momentum trend line before going to the downside. Um, this is my 4 minute point of interest. Actually, the price took, I think, M5 point of interest was around this area. And another thing, I was being greedy because I wanted a smaller stop loss, which led me losing or rather missing out the trade. But it's played out perfectly. I will talk about time and price, like session leading to another session, which ended up playing quite nicely. So yes guys, this was the second entry. The first entry I had already entered around this week. I expected the second entry around this one, but I missed out because I wanted a smaller stop loss. So let's get to the charts. Yes, guys, my charts it's a bit of a mess. Also, I will do another trade breakdown on this reaccumulation to the upside. So, guys, let's get to the trade. Okay, before we get to the trade, I'll share my entire thought process. You see, guys, on GBPUSD, we've been bearish for quite some time. We've been bearish, and this was my last supply zone. Let me. Yes, this was my last supply zone, and the reason why I was so confident about this supply zone, you see, this lower time frame minor momentum trend line, and this was the manipulation of the trend line, and this supply zone sponsored the break of this lower low. So I expected to sell as the price approached this supply zone because it was the last supply zone on this bearish leg. If the price went above this point of interest, our bias will have changed completely. So that was my first thing to consider. And the price, as the price approach our point of interest, you see it's created this these equal highs and later on started to distribute. You see our PSY buying climax sign of weakness, UT and UT, and the price introduced this bearish order flow to the downside. I expected to sell around this area, but the price started to accumulate, reaccumulate. PSY buying climax, shakeout in the spring, and to the upside. Around this area, I saw the price accumulating because after this sign of weakness, you see how the price manipulated this low and immediately went back to our trading range. So I saw in this price action the price reaccumulating and broke the structure to the upside. My bias was to buy around this area because usually when the price is reaccumulating near supply zone, it's reaccumulating to take out that supply. And this momentum trend line, I was expecting the price to manipulate this momentum trend line in this demand zone. It sponsored the break of this bearish order flow. So I expected the price to manipulate this point of interest and continue to the upside. And I watched the price as it approached this point of interest and it's accumulated nicely. But later on, it started to create upside liquidity, but it respected this supply. And then later on, it went lower and lower. As soon as the price broke this point of interest, I knew that my bias had to change because there was no other supply zone there was no other demand zone that was left below. So that's where my entry came in right here because this supply zone sponsored the break of this significant demand zone. The price didn't have to go below this demand zone. So since this supply zone broke this significant demand zone, I immediately place a pending order. A pending order. Um, excuse me, guys. Around this area, you see the price mitigated and triggered my order. And my second entry was this one. This one. The first entry was right here. The second entry was right here because I expected the run to liquidity before going down. You see, this is a distribution by climate automatically sign of weakness UT and UT. This UT triggered my entry into the downside. You may wonder What are these lines for? If you watch my previous video, you will actually know what are these lines for. So at the moment of an actual trade, like I said, I wasn't aware of price in time. But you see, around this point, let me show you. You see these equal highs. These equal highs. At this point, 7 a.m. UK time, Frankfurt opened and manipulated these equal highs and grabbed the liquidity and continue going down. And 8 o'clock UK time, London opened, which created this. Let me go to that time. If I had trading view, I would have used playback. That tool is very, very, very effective. But as for now, we are not affording. Frankfurt opened, which manipulated these equal highs, grabbed the liquidity, and continued to the downside and created this bearish order flow. And around this time, excuse me, around this time, London opened and it continued with this bearish order flow. And later on, manipulated this lower high because a lot of people were expecting to sell around this area. Remember, Frankfurt opened, manipulated the liquidity, and created this bearish order flow. London opened, created the liquidity, then manipulated the liquidity, and continued to the downside. You see, each session it opens and manipulates the liquidity, which leads to another session. Open, manipulate the liquidity, and continue. And around this point, this yellow line, New York open. Guess what? New York opened and created these equal highs and later on manipulated these equal highs and this momentum trend line. From this supply zone that was introduced later on the London session, which also grabbed this liquidity because a lot of people were expecting to buy after this break of structure, and this demand that was introduced later on the session, London session, manipulated this liquidity, and later on New York opened and created these equal highs. And remember, London session created this momentum trend line, and New York opened and manipulated this trend line and continued to the downside. and later on mitigated this IFC, institutionally funded candle, because retail traders do not have, and you see how quick this move is. It was grabbing the liquidity, these equal highs and this momentum trend line, and later on, because there were orders that had to be mitigated to, for the price to create, for big traders to create healthy price action, because at this point they bought, definitely huge capital was required to create this move, and later on sold. At this point these buy orders are in negative, but these sell orders are in profit. So these buy orders that are in drawdown, the price has to later on go back to this IFC and break even this buy and continue to sell to the downside. So guys, you see how one session led to another session, led to another session, and how each session created liquidity and later on grabbed that liquidity. Like I mentioned in the previous video, guys, liquidity drives the market. We always have to wait for the runs of liquidity, because if you see a plain price action, we have to wait and read the price. So guys, this was my first trade. My second trade, I missed that second trade. um, this one I just did the analysis, but it was a nice one. So let's get to my take profit. I expected the price to create a new lower low, to create a new lower low. This was my entry. I expected the price to go below this lower low, to create a new lower low. But due to the lack of confidence, I closed my entry prematurely around 1:12. I closed around this point, but I knew that the price had to make a new lower low. So the the entire trade had the potential of making 1:25, but due to the lack of confidence, like I said, I closed it prematurely. And this entry right over here would have yielded roughly, actually 1:27, the second entry. So yes guys, this is my trade breakdown on GBPUSD. And the most interesting thing, I wasn't aware, price and time. This is my second video. Um, the first one on time and price one was on Euro USD, and it repeated the same thing, but from higher time frame all the way to 1 minute. It's a top down analysis, um, from, like I said, from one session leading to another session, leading to another session. And these trades are very high probability, have a very high probability, because even on intraday plays, you can execute a trade on intraday, but ending up being a swing trade. You see, even on 1 minute, markets are fractal. So this was a nice trade, especially after I noticed how time and price are effective, how price lead from one session to another, and it doesn't, like, how am I going to put this? It goes with higher time frame bias. So this was a very nice trade, guys. This is a second trade. Like, going to repeat myself. This is a second trade on time and price. I'm going to continue study time and price, how the price, like, plays during the sessions, from one session to another, and the price to drop continue to drop. Along the way, the price redistributed and continue to the downside. So, but I'm not going to take credit of this entire move. I was just targeting, because knowing that the price will create a newer lower low, you're not sure if it's going to create that new lower low by 1 pip or 100 pips. So it's better to take profit at this low, because the price can create this lower low and continue to the upside to create a lower high, so on and so forth. So guys, hope you'll enjoy, and I'm going to create another trade breakdown on this analysis right here. So guys, if you have questions, please feel free to leave a comment. Also, please subscribe if you like me to drop, or if you like this content, because I'm still going to drop lots of trade breakdowns. Especially now, I'm going to take into account time and price, because I believe, like I mentioned and like I explained, I'm still um, suffering from the lack of confidence, inconsistency. You see, here's another trade on GBP CAD. It was a nice 1:10. I do capture 1:10, but after a losing streak, maybe 10, 8 losing trades, I catch it 1:10. So I think if I stick to time and price, um, it's going to help a lot with my consistency and profitability factor. So guys, if you have question or suggestion, please feel free, and I'm going to create a Telegram group where you can join and we'll discuss. So yeah guys, hope you'll enjoy this video. See you on the next one.